Good evening, everybody. Allow me today to start this usual Voice of the Patriots slightly different. Your Excellency, our Head of State, Dr. Hake Gottfried Keiko, the leader of the official opposition, Honorable McHenry Venani, and all the other leaders in our National Assembly, our traditional leaders, leaders of the religious faith groupings in our country, compatriots and patriots, and all inhabitants of Namibia. Allow me to thank you for listening in, and may I greet you as I'm delegated by the leadership of IPC, greeting you with one thing that we all have in common, and that is humanity. I want today to talk to you under the theme of all of us this year. Let's embrace humanity with humility in order for us to excel ourselves with distinction in the service of our people. We had a pretty devastating year. The advantages of reflection is that it brings together the pain and sorrow that we all experience, but at the same time also the joy of knowing that the bad times are truly over. Not a single citizen has not been impacted upon, touched, or hurt by the events that took place throughout the period that we encountered the coronavirus from 2019, 2020, and so much 2021. As we approach the festive season, we experience much loss of life on our roads, and only one thing allowed us to emerge both from the devastating year of 2020 and also from the harmful effects of coronavirus. But then, that which holds us together, that which has given us the strength to emerge from that devastating year, is something so fundamental to us, something that has started with the creation of our nation. At this stage, perhaps, I want to take our head of state a few years back, when he was the chairperson of the body that created our fundamental laws, our constitution. And I want to take you back to think a little bit more what vision you had and the other fathers and mothers of our constitution and our foundation of our country. What was the vision 30 years ago that you had? Have we outlived that vision, or has that vision simply evaporated in thin air? I want to leave it there. You are not the first that created those fundamental rights. It goes back to the Magna Carta, when the mother of parliaments came together and created those basic laws of humanity. But again, amongst our people, those were not the beginnings, and I shall come back to you later to point out a few of the principles that we should hold really dear and that should be able to guide us as citizens, as Namibians in 2022. There is a need for us to change the way we have been doing things. If we reflect back to the 30 years that we have experienced our independence, because we all have got certain values that we hold dear to us. It doesn't matter how much individualism we've got. We've got certain values that we've got in common. We've got values of the importance of our families that we experience, especially during the festive season. Many of our families came together from very far and traveled to share with each other the experiences they had in the previous year. Those values common to all of us is the basic glue that keeps us together, that makes us a community and a society. A community that is responsible for each other, a community that cares, a community that is looking after each other. But at the same time, we have got the values of patriotism, the values of us as Namibians, responsible as citizens, responsible with our duties and our sacrifices for us together as a nation. Amongst us all, we have also got the values of faith, whether that is to be a belief in a much more superior power, expressed in one or another through religious means or a set of ethics. But much more so, we've got some values that define us and define our relationship as we approach each other, our relationship to each other as human beings, as students, as workers, as doctors, indeed, from all walks of life. Those are fundamental, that those values of honesty, fairness, dignity, integrity, and compassion towards each other. Those are the most important values that we have as human beings, irrespective whether we've got a constitution or not. Throughout the periods of our independence, and especially last year, we have seen the breaking down of those values amongst our society. We have seen how we speak to each other as citizens, and especially as politicians. One cannot forget the degrading conduct of our citizens in what should have been an honorable environment, our National Assembly. The politics of targeting individuals. Indeed, Your Excellency, you once said, play the ball and not the person. But we have witnessed how our values as societies, as individuals, the glue that keeps us together, has been broken down. Your Excellency, fellow citizens, patriots and compatriots, within our Constitution, a beautiful liberal document that encompasses and encapsulates our democracy, it's a basic principle of rule of law. Rule of law amongst each other, rule of law applied equally to everyone, where there is no one above the law. But I particularly want to point out some of the basic principles that are in our fundamental rights. Some of these things that we are born with. We are born onto this continent. We are born into Namibia with basic fundamental rights that cannot be taken away by anybody without just cause, without the relevant laws being applied. A right to life. Yes, Your Excellency, you said in those chambers and looked at each other as Namibians after the elections and came together and formulated those basic rights. A right to life. Everyone is born with a right to life to live. But at the same time, that also implies that we as leaders of this nation have to make sure that we provide the means to the right of life, and or we provide the opportunities for our citizens to access the right to life. But for the past 30 years, today, we still have got people who have got no access to water at all. And we say, water is life. We still have got people sharing their point of water with animals. We've got people that has now been threatened by some of the local authorities to cut off their water because they can't pay. A right to life is an obligation for all of our leaders. It's an obligation for everyone. And that is Article 6 of our Constitution. And we can move further, and I just want to touch on 3 more of our fundamental rights. Liberty, the freedom that we so much enjoy. But sometimes we look at that liberty with a negative eye. Sometimes we look at it negatively, thinking that that means that you can do anything that you want. But it's probably time that we look at this with a positive eye to identify those factors that are encapsulated in that word of liberty. The freedom to do what you want to do, but as long as you do not impinge upon the freedom of others. Indeed, Your Excellency, 2019, 2020, and 2021 must have been a daunting year, even for the wisest of presidents. The decision that you had to take between denying people their rights of liberty and protecting their health. That must have been a daunting task. And yet you needed to balance it. And we trusted that it was not your intention to deprive so many of our people of their economic means of existence. Over 200,000 of our people will probably never get a job again to be able to access the means of living. The other right is dignity. Dignity to which everyone is entitled. Whether you are a leader, someone in the village, a student, a worker, a fisherman, you are entitled to your dignity. You are entitled to the right to dignity that is to be respected by everyone. But then, what has happened to our values that actually allows us to recognize the dignity of all of us? Many a time you hear politicians creating a situation whereby the propaganda has gone to touch the individual and not the issues that the individual is advocating. And many a time, that propaganda has led to our people being misled into believing something other than the truth, not even what was said by the person that is actually directed to. That is bad news for Namibia, bad news for politicians of our country that would go on and make press statements about others, about issues that are not true. We all have got the value of faith, believing in truth, believing in justice. And yet, as a Christian nation, we often find that our own leaders don't come out and respect our dignity in telling us the truth. That is not only the 3 that I wanted to mention, but we also have got equality. Everyone shall be equal before the law. But we have seen how much of that fundamental value, fundamental right, has been destroyed amongst our people. I want us to think of this first year, and I'm calling it a first year, of the last years of His Excellency to reign in Namibia as a transitional year, a year of transit, and the second year, 2023, and the third year of transit, 2024. Perhaps, and more likely than not, Your Excellency, you may be and should be the last president of the SWAPO party to reign over Namibia, because the time for change is now. But we must recognize, including yourselves, Your Excellency, that over the past 30 years, we have massive difficulties that we experience in this country. And if any one political party or any one individual thinks that we can solve the problems of Namibia by applying our partisan attitude to them, by applying our ideologies to them, whether we are dealing with local authority issues, where we are supposed to work together as councillors, whether we are dealing with issues within our National Assembly, there is one thing certain. We cannot solve these problems by standing alone as leaders of political parties or belonging to political parties. The problem we face is much more than we could possibly anticipate. And anybody who can think that that is possible to be solved by one political party, then you don't recognize or understand the problem at all. Many of our people have been put in conditions that is not worth living, in informal settlements for the 30 years that they have been there. Only today, we are reading that 1.6 million Namibians are now living in poverty. We don't seem to understand that word. When it's mentioned, we merely think the word poverty. Poverty has got many dimensions. Dimensions that are associated with the values that we attach to the right to life. The values that we attach to liberty, to dignity, and to equality. Where we've got many children in poverty that walks long distances in Aute, Kavango West, or even in Ochitenda in the northeast of our west of our country. We've got many elderly people having a small pension when in Article 95 we guaranteed them, as your excellencies have been authoring it back 30 years, 31 years ago then, to get them a social grant that they can actually have a decent life. But that is not the case. We've got many elderly people struggling as they are the breadwinners of many of their grandchildren. Many of our students now work on the streets with PhDs, and yet we promise them education. Yes, education. But what was the content of the education? Was that education relevant to socio-economic development of this country? Yes, we've got our workers, our fishermen. They spend so much time in the cold of the sea. We've got our miners that spend so much time in the bowel of the earth, digging out our resources. And yet, we managed to produce laws that deny Namibians a right to enjoy those resources. Even if we were to give the SWAPO party another 30 years, the party and its leaders will not solve those problems. Even if we were to go back and give His Excellency out of the 7 years that he's reigned already, and I'm consciously saying reigned rather than ruled, even if we were to give His Excellency another 7 years, he would not achieve the prosperity that he promised in as he dashed into the leadership of our country as a promising image. Yes, we were proud then in 2014, when you came to power. But it is what the nation says. You disappointed us. You disappointed us because not only yourselves, but many before you have recognized that those that you appointed in position of authority betrayed this nation. It's about time that we think about how much corruption actually betrayed our people. How much the fish rot has actually stolen from our people. And anyone that steals the resources of our nation is treasonous. It is treason, nothing else. And we should be able to have laws that are appropriate to apply to those that steal from us. Your Excellency, even if we edge more, yes, onto it, you will not be able to leave this country as its leader with any pride at all. What shall be the legacy of His Excellency Dr. Hage Gottfried Kengo? As we merged into the local authorities, the legacy that the SWAPO councillors have left there is debt and debt and debt. That many of our councillors around this country are working hard to try and resolve. Very soon, the water prices will be going up. Very soon, the electricity will be going up because there is a problem in South Africa with Eskom, and that problem will be transferred as tariffs to NamPower, who will transfer it again to the city of Windhoek and other local authorities that will ultimately transfer it to the individual, the consumer. But if we don't educate our citizens of where the problem lies, the citizens will continue to blame those that they can see and not those that they cannot see. Your Excellency, what would be a student in 2024 say was your legacy on education? What have you achieved? How many of our students with PhDs are now walking around the cities with other qualifications, with no prospect whatsoever of a job? How could you have said that you'll create a ministry of poverty reduction when the unemployment in our country has been going up and going up and going up ever since you've taken office? We cannot blame COVID at all. We were already on the downward in terms of economic development. With the various of the mechanisms that has been introduced to try and cover us on our eyes to see that you are doing something. The Namibia Investment Promotion Act stagnated in 2016, promised a bit, but it was short on many things. And just before we went on to the festive season, IPF came in. The investment promotion promotion bill that was proposed by the Honorable Minister of Trade and Industry, a very important ministry. But Your Excellency, your legacy cannot be to blame those that you appointed. You were there right at the beginning. For 10 years as Prime Minister, the Chief Administrator, right at the onset of our independence, right at the onset of the creation of our country, our nation, you were there to promulgate and to put together a mechanism of effective administration. That was not the case. You later on became the Minister of Trade. Yes, you were appointed, but you have achieved very little that could be said it's your legacy. And then you went on to the driving seat as Your Excellency the President will respect the institution, the head of state. We will respect the state. It's one of our core values that we can do as citizens. But Your Excellency, for a patient sitting in Katutura Hospital, overlooking the window to the north and seeing this monstrous building that starts to shine, when they are living in a home, a hospital, in a ward full of mice, cockroaches, with inadequate medicine, cracking walls, and they look out of the window. What do you think, Your Excellency, should this person be thinking about you at the end of your reign? What would the doctors think when Your Excellency eventually visits Katutura? Is it that you made it possible for them to be able to carry out their jobs? Your Excellency, we had peace and tranquility in our country. But peace without opportunities for us to live the standard of life that we can is almost valueless. Yes, we appreciate our servicemen, our army, our police, for the sterling job they've been doing. But Your Excellency, have you seen their uniforms? Have you seen their boots? Have you seen how many stitches there are in their uniforms? Have you seen some of the cars, the police vehicles that accompany you, that the red stripe has completely disappeared? Have you seen how some of these young men and women emerged from the bush of the liberation struggle at the age of 27, 28, and now they are approaching their pension years of 60? Where are they going to? Their salaries haven't been increased for quite a considerable period of time. Now they are going to go into retirement. Where do they retire to? They've always been living in the camp. In Reykop, in Osona, in Sederhof, and no home to go to. What will be your legacy as these men and women protected you in uniform? What have you done for them? Yes, they made sure that our mothers and sisters as policemen could walk freely without fear. But what have you done to ensure there is enough lighting for them to be able to have security in a country that we liberated? Have we betrayed those who sacrificed for the independence of our country? Can we see a vision for future generations when we continue to ignore the basic values that make us what we are? Human beings. That we embrace humanity with humility to make sure that we can serve our people with distinction. It's not a year that you want, Your Excellency, and us to outlay, fellow citizens. The problem that we face is not a problem that requires anybody to recognize itself as belonging to anything. What you need to recognize is that Namibia is all we have. It's all you have. It's all that we all together have. We need to recognize that for the past 30 years, that Namibia that we died for, that many sacrificed for, is not the one that we envisioned 30 years ago in that chamber as we put together these beautiful values and principles that would have allowed us to guide us through the formulation of means of bringing up a nation in prosperity, true prosperity. I want to touch a little bit on some of the basic means of industrialization and running an economy. Trans-Namib. We now have a Trans-Namib railway system covering some 3,000 kilometers, archaic, some of it being repaired with exorbitant money that has been taken from somewhere. But you do recall, Your Excellency, 10 years ago or so, that we ordered 16 locomotives at a cost of 200 from China. All those locomotives but one are in the locomotive graveyard. They lasted only a few months, a few years, and they are gone. A locomotive should last us a good time to be able to service this nation. We are now set with locomotives that we inherited from apartheid South Africa of 50 years old. And they are rolling at the rate of 35 kilometers per hour. How do you expect us to run an economy of that nature? How can a parastatal such as Trans-Namib be able to generate approximately 30 million and its liability is some 50 million? But go down to Trans-Namib and see what the workers are doing. Go down to Trans-Namib and see what the executive actually gave themselves as bonuses last year alone, 2 years ago. How could anyone with the responsibility of building a nation's economy give yourselves so much bonuses? And I want to touch to the bonuses that these CEOs are giving each other. What do they do? And then look at the corridor group. Let's look at the port of Walvis Bay. We borrowed 3.5 million in order for us to extend our container terminal to 600 meters to be able to get larger vessels bathing in of 350 meters long, away from the 1950s of vessels that was about 150. Now the vessels are larger, having much more containers that they are transporting as they transport goods from Southeast Asia along the West African sort of corridor of transportation. But we forgot to plan and plan it really well. Because we are now going to be competing with Lobito Bay, with the Benguela Railway going into the interior of Africa. And we are going to compete with Luanda because Maersk has invested there. And we'll be competing with Durban as well and Dar es Salaam. Our tariffs at Walvis Bay is just too high, 5,000. compared to the tariffs in Durban of 2,000 and 6,600 respectively. Even if the distance from Kitwe in Zambia is 90 kilos longer to Walvis Bay as opposed to Durban, if I am any business person, I'll choose Durban. And I'll much more choose Lobito Bay. We thought that we've got an economic hub in Walvis Bay. But I'm afraid the truth is we have created a monster that we probably will not be able to pay the loan that we have taken from the Development Bank of Africa, the African Development Bank. And therefore, the future generations need to ask the decision makers, what is it that you plan for? How could you plan for a hub that is not going to be producing anything? The container levels coming into Walvis Bay has started going down. And yet, we exchanged the CEOs of the two companies. One came to Namib, and the other one went to the Corridor Group. To do what? Have they done any better before we done that? How could we possibly employ people without looking at their merits, their ability? Why did we not use a pragmatic methodology to employ people who can actually do something? Now, at the moment, we are leasing 4 locomotives from South Africa to carry the chemicals through. But what kind of industry is that has got no safety record? Only a few days ago, a train derailed between Ice and Gage in the south, between Moso, Skiermanswap, and Ludres. So far, in the past 10 years or so, each year, about 49 trains derailed. What is Namib doing? How could you possibly have an industry which is so destructive that the various locomotives are falling apart and not doing anything? How could we have invested in 16 locomotives? Now, with locomotives, it's not like going to Pupkewitz and then buy a car ready-made. No, you order them and they are made there. And we ordered poor quality locomotives, each of them costing approximately 12.5 million Namibian rand. A good locomotive that is to last us for years would cost at least 65 million. That would be a good locomotive. But let me take you a little bit further. What have we done? And what have your administration over the reign of your period done with agriculture? Let's just look a little bit, not far from Rundu. It's a green scheme that is idling because it owes Namcor some well over 12 million Namibian dollars in unpaid fees. And nothing is taking place. The machineries and the trucks are stationary. Have a look at Singonda. Have a look at Muses, Dongaline, and even the farm that we could have cultivated in Katima. When we as a nation could feed ourselves, our administration failed us completely. We consume 150,000 tons of maize. And we could have done better because we got the land and we got the people willing to work. But our government failed us. Failed us by making the wrong decisions. Yes, you are good at writing policies and policies. Even those policies, like the one that we rejected just at the end of last year, the IPPFB, was not encouraging investors to come in this country. Your Excellency, you are on record of saying that we are chasing them away. You should have said your ministers who are designing these policies are chasing investors away. How could it be possible that an investor should be waiting for 12 months before a minister could say which industry they can invest and with whom they can go into business? How could we possibly control the investor to that degree? If we've got the money, we will not be investing in a country which is so stringent and not relaxing the investment laws and a tax regime that keeps on going. Your Excellency, your regime has been chasing they've invested us away. Yes, there are a lot of investors that's been coming to Namibia, willing to invest in Namibia, to create jobs for our young people, to create jobs to ensure that people can put bread on the table. But those investors have literally been chased away because many of them were not prepared to work with a regime and individuals in the regime that wants a brown envelope under the table. Many of them simply said no. They would rather keep their dignity and integrity and ensure that when they come to Namibia in 2024, we shall be able to give them an opportunity where we, as partners, will be working together with investors as IPC government comes into force. And as I said, Namibians, earlier on, forget which political party you belong to. Whether you are SWAPO, IPC leadership is not saying leave SWAPO. It will be too much on your dignity and integrity. Some of you have been SWAPO for years and years. Stay there. Some of you came from DTA, PDM. We are not saying leave that organization. Yes, you've got the right to join any political party. Do so. But we are not saying leave that party. Some of you joined LPM, APP, EFF, and some of you joined all the others, RP as well. But ask yourself, why did you join that political party? What is its foundation? And how is that foundation played out? Have you seen of the regional council election in Kamagoro, where political party were literally dishing out pounds or dollars to the voters to vote for them? What has become of the integrity of our electoral process? When parties and leaders of political parties condone such practices that destroys the very foundation that we so much value, democracy, exercising the right to choose your leaders, to choose your government, to choose the governing political party as well. Yes, we don't have the money, the fish rod as the other political parties had to be able to pay. But it's up to our Namibian citizens to now start thinking, what are the values that you are born with that you need to exercise as you exercise your fundamental right to elect your own leaders? The right to participate in political activities. Should you really be paid to do so? What is it that we need to allow our young people to realize that it's not about us now. It's about your future. Your future is at stake if you don't stand up and register and decide to vote for change. Yes, stay in your political party. Be proud to be so. It's not the colors that you wear that determines your future. It's not the Viva Viva that determines your future. But it's when you come together as Namibians and make that cross in your privacy. Only you in 2024 will be able to determine that truly this time I did not betray the future of this nation, that I voted for the future of this nation, for prosperity. Only then can we truly as Namibians consider ourselves to have embraced humanity, to have really said Namibia is all we have. What is important to everyone in this year is to prepare as His Excellency starts the transition, transferring power to the next government of the people of this country. That government that will be having the majority party as IPC is not going to be seen as an IPC government, but it will be seen as a government of the people of Namibia, where those who will be given opportunities by appointment will be given those opportunities pragmatically and on merit. Doesn't matter what you've done, whether you are a founding member of IPC, whether you truly left your political party and joined, it is what you can do for the people of Namibia that will determine whether you'll be given the opportunity and be honored to do so. We said we were not going to issue out a Christmas message. No, it has got no meaning. It has got no meaning when people have got nothing to enjoy for that festive season. The 1.6 people in poverty, with its many dimensions, will not be smiling and have not smiled for many times and for a long period of time. We did not issue you out with a New Year message. We simply could not say, Happy New Year. What is it that you are going to be happy? Yes, the year is new. We progress on. We left the devastating year of 2021 behind, where we lost so many of our people. But what would be the happiness that we would have wished you? What we want you to be prepared to do is to stand up and to understand the values that we have. The values that glue us together as families, as neighbors, as communities that help each other in times of need. Only because of those values were we able to shoulder the sorrows of many of our neighbors, our brothers and sisters. We need to be able to understand our society more, not as a society of parties or partisan, of ideologies, and none of our people eat those parties or eat those ideologies. Our people want something tangible that they can actually enjoy around as living beings, so that they cannot go around hungry, so that they don't go around begging. And when we come to the point that we engage with our foreign friends to assist us in the development of our country, it will be on mutual benefit. And I want to invite all those potential investors in this country that the future looks much brighter than the past. We will engage you at an early stage to be able to formulate policies that will be able to benefit Namibia, but will also be able to benefit our own people, that are our people that wants to come invest in our country. At the moment, what we are doing is basically throwing away our mineral resources to the highest bidder. And that is not acceptable to us or to future generations. Your Excellency, Honorable Venani, our mayors present and past, and indeed, yes, including our mayor, Dr. Job Chipululo Ampanda, our mayors in Walvis Bay and every single town where we've got our leaders, our traditional leaders. This year comes with a challenge where we are at the crossroads. You have to choose. Choose Namibia above partisan. Choose the future of your children above partisan. Ensure that our elderly and those retiring has got a decent life to go and sit and tell us the tales of the past. But don't choose partisan, don't choose ideologies, and don't choose the individual, but choose Namibia. In IPC, we started off strong and we kept on growing. And as we came into the local authorities, we made sure that our representatives there adhere to the rule of law. For many of the people in this nation, you have been inundated with the so-called disputes in the city of Windhoek. It's not by the making of IPC that we no longer have a coalition in the city of Windhoek. But there is no law that prescribes a coalition in the city of Windhoek. What it prescribes is for local authority councillors as a unit to come together and elect amongst themselves their leaders. IPC, LPM, and NUDO did exactly that. And so did AR, and so did SWAPO, and so did PDM, because they were all in that chamber and nobody left that chamber. The leadership of the city of Windhoek has been elected by the representative of various political parties, including SWAPO party. By abstention, you also participated in that election. So those leaders and that decision that was taken on that day is a decision of all the councillors in that. And you will all have an obligation at law to respect the leadership of that city and their decisions. It is time that we go into our local authority chambers to debate for solutions in order to deliver services to our people, rather than to go in to debate in order to promote our own image. Yes, if I wanted to be in the city, I would have put myself on the top of the list. But the collective leadership of our party, we don't allow that. Our party's leadership is to empower others, especially the young people, so that we can have Namibia and a council in the future if we, the elders, are no longer there. But what it is this. It's time that our councillors go into debate to provide solutions for our people, to be able to educate our people. And when I'm talking about our councillors in Windu, I'm talking about everyone who's a councillor. See yourself as a servant of the people and not a councillor belonging to a political party. Otherwise, you will be arguing and debating to win as a political party and not for the people that voted and mandated you to go and deliver the services for them to win. As brothers and sisters, having adhered to those basic values that we were born with, having traveled to the principles that were encapsulated in our constitution, as His Excellency and his team then in the beginning of our state has put together, having looked at those ones, let's change course. Let's start valuing each other as human beings. Let's embrace each other. Let's have a harmony in the manner in which debate, having only the people of Namibia at the center. As we say in IPC, Namibia is all we have. Give me one politician, one member of any other political party who will deny that statement, that Namibia is all we have. That we say also, Namibia is not for sale. And we say it consciously. Now give me anybody else, whether it's a Namibian or not a Namibian, who will disagree that a national asset, a country, cannot be sold just like that to any highest bidder. We as Namibians have got the capacity to be able to save this country. But we can only do so if we are able to clearly understand what we have in this country, what we have in our resources. Not long ago, Recon Africa came into Namibia. And who did they use as engineers? They used our own engineers to assist them in seeking to exploit our own resources. If only we knew that we've got capacity in this country, if only we had a political will, and only if we had a government that is responsive to the needs of our people, we would have been able to harness our resources to the benefit of our people. But that is not what is taking place. So, as from now onwards, in the transitional years, and I believe, Your Excellency, as you pronounce yourself, believing in democracy, you are not going to be seeking for a third term, and that is to be appreciated by all peace-loving Namibians and all those who believe in constitutionalism of governance of our countries. We cannot say we appreciate your term, neither can we say that you did well. But the nation will judge you, the legacy that you will leave. But we want you to be able to prepare for your retirement as you pronounce yourself soon, and to allow for a smooth transition to the new generation, where we truly now will end the sufferings of our people and take off. And we are telling our people, your job starts now to prepare Namibia for a new future, to make sure we pronounce ourselves to our fellow Namibians, to Southern Africa, to Africa and the globe, to all our investors and all our friends around the world, those who have also contributed to our independence, that do not look to Namibia with a sore eye anymore, because this new generation of Namibians that has got no partisans as a feature or ideology as a feature will truly be looking towards 2024, when we will gradually take over the reins of power from the SWAPO party and truly put together a governance of our people by the people of Namibia. So prepare now to convince everybody that throughout the next 3 years, you are talking about saving Namibia now and voting for change in 2024. And I don't want the commanders or anybody else to leave the party that they suffered for. Stay where you are, but when you go into the booth, move into Namibia and move into change. Thank you very much. I wish you hard work now towards 2024. Mobilize, educate, support each other, hold the values of our nation high. Thank you very much indeed.